Hey friends, it's Jeannie. Thanks for joining me here today for another video. Today's card will be using Trinity Stamps Good Morning Sunshine and the stamp set from Not Too Shabby called I Heart Coffee. I showed two stamp sets in the beginning intro and I actually ended up just using one of them. As you can see, I am setting up a scene card using all these coffee images from the I Heart Coffee stamp set. I have masks for all of them because I will be doing ink blending for my background. The plus of having masks already cut out for all your images is that you can help set up a scene. I have a panel where I set up my scene. I put the stamps right on top of it, lined it up in my MISTI, and then removed that panel, and I will be stamping directly onto the piece of cardstock that I will be inking up for the rest of the scene. Once I do that, I will go ahead, remove the masks from my template and add them to the card. This card actually doesn't need much of the masking, but because I am inking up this entire panel, I will have to mask them off so I can do that. But it is really helpful for setting up a scene. Once I go ahead and add my second layer of stamps, I will stamp it directly onto the card and then remove the mask from my template and add it on. I used a strip of Post-it masking paper just so I can create a table. This is just a 1-inch Post-it masking tape that is really easy to use. It's a staple in my craft room because I love creating scenes, and tables are a really easy one. So for the first portion, I had inked it up using Tumbled glass, and I am using the Trinity Stamps Good Morning Sunshine stencil. There are two stencils in this set, A and B, and they are etched on the stencil themselves, so you know, but they also have the etching of what you are stenciling up. So the A stencil has the B etching, and then the B stencil has the A etching, so you know exactly how to line it up perfectly. I am going in with two different blue colors. I'll have them listed down below. I used Mermaid, Lagoon, and Stormy Sky. I will just layer it up and add that color. I wanted the difference in the blue colors, so that's why I used 3 different colors for the background. Of course, you can just go in with one color, but I thought I would just add a little interest to the sky and use that stencil to do so. Once I finished the top portion of my scene, I went ahead and took that masking paper and moved it up, and I will be inking up the rest of the card. So for the table, I used brush Corduroy, and that just gives it a light brown wash. So when I remove my mask, I will go in with a Copic friendly black marker just to draw that table line. I thought that because I stamped out all these images in black ink, it would just match with that pen and it would make the table look very obvious that there is a difference between the sky and the table. For my images, I'm using Copic markers to color them up, and if you follow me, you know that I generally use 3 markers per area to achieve the dimension and the look that I want. First, I will go in with the darkest color to add shadows for an object, and then I'll go in with the mid-tone color to blend it out, leaving a bit of white space behind so I can leave it for highlights. Lastly, I'll go in with my lightest color and color up the rest of the area. So for example, this donut, I am leaving that white space and going in with my lightest to leave that highlight, and it looks like the light is reflecting off that donut, and it does look pretty dimensional. As you can see, my ink blending really took and filled up most of the space in the scene. I generally rely heavily on ink blending to avoid using my Copic markers to color up a full A2 panel card. I am kind of cheap in that respect because Copic markers are pricey, so I try to avoid using them up for a full panel because it just takes so much ink to color up an entire panel. If I were to take my brown markers to color up that table, it would be a good amount of ink that is used just to fill it up, especially because you want to blend out all the little nooks and crannies and marks that you are making to add that dimension to the card. I think that it was just easier just to use distress inks. Of course, there are occasions where I'll color up an entire panel and you can totally disregard what I just said, but it is why I do a lot of masking when I scene build, so I can mask everything off and just use distress inks for my background. distress inks are relatively inexpensive to me. I have the mini ink cubes and I've had them for several years. Ever since I started card making, I do add the new colors to my collection as they come out, but I just haven't even refilled them. I usually will just repurchase the ink cube because it is relatively inexpensive for how long they last. And I think I've only repurchased the ink cubes to replace, I think, 3 colors, which is kind of crazy because I have been doing this card making thing for a while. And the idea that I just haven't refilled it or repurchased them, it makes it worth the money. So the scene card does have a lot of items which can be colored up with different colors. I am a little apprehensive when I have a lot of items because I want everything to look cohesive, and I usually have a problem picking color combos. I have the same problem in my wardrobe. I tend to stick with blacks and neutrals because it's just easier. Everything goes well with black, or everything goes well with brown, or even navy. When I started card making, I found myself having a really hard time picking colors. As I continued to do card making and continued seeing other card makers and how they pick their color combos, I realized that I was most comfortable picking a color that is seen throughout a particular card. So here, the donut is with pink frosting, and I use that same pink for the hearts on the coffee cups and the coffee bag. It's a very minor detail, but I think that it just adds to the cohesive look and it makes me feel more comfortable, just because I'm just really bad at picking colors. I had watched another video from Jennifer McGuire and she had talked about color combos and picking your color palette for cards. So I've been kind of taking it to heart and applying it to the cards that I've been making. I'll Google random color combos such as spring or florals or anything like that that just brings up color palettes for you to really get inspiration from. And I've noticed that it does really help. It's kind of changed my color palette for the recent cards I've created. So I'm kind of excited about that. But honestly, I generally will go just and fall back on rainbow colors for cards if I can't decide, and if there's just a lot of items to color. I think here I just picked colors that didn't clash with the blue or the brown, so I went with green and the teal and then this bright golden yellow just so that last coffee cup could really pop. And I think I'm happy with the colors. Sometimes I'm just so unhappy with the colors, but here I think I'm okay with them. I do regret my change of the colors using the stencil. I think I should have just gone monotone with the blue and kind of stuck with the stormy sky, because the Mermaid Lagoon is so bright and it kind of almost looks like the cup color. I think it just might be me, but I think I should have gone monotone so we would focus on the cups versus the background. Anytime there's more muted colors, you kind of focus on everything else but the background. I think that that would be the only change I would make to the card if I were to go back and redo this. For the little steam in the coffee cups, I wasn't able to mask that because I wasn't cutting that out for a mask. No way. So I took a white pen, a white gel pen, and just filled in that space. And then while I had the white pen out, I added highlights to the side of the cups. I rarely do this. A lot of crafters use a white pen to add highlights to images, and they do it really well. I don't think I do it very well, so I just kind of added it to the right hand side, and for some reason I decided to add it to the left hand side of the yellow cup as well, which made it look weird, but I couldn't go back, so I just left it as is. And I think that the highlights actually kind of made the images pop a little bit more. As you can see, I also grounded the images just so it didn't look like they were floating, and it kind of gives that depth perception for the table and how the items were on the table. I also used my Copic markers just to add a bit of dimension onto the table too, so it looked like it was further back. For my sentiment, because I had so much going on, I'm going with my go-to white sentiment on black cardstock. So I just went ahead, heat embossed it, and covered it with white embossing powder and took my heat gun to it, let it melt, and I trimmed it down. I used my T-ruler to help me place it onto my card so it would be straight, and that finishes off the card. I thought that the table had a little bit too much space and the top portion had too much space, so I actually trimmed it off just a little bit and I matted it on a piece of green cardstock to tie it in with the coffee cup that is on the table as well. And then I decided to also go in with glossy accents just to add it to the hearts and the donut, just so it looks like there's a donut glaze and then the hearts are shiny. And it's just a nice touch to add to a card. It's really subtle. You don't really see it unless you're looking at it in person, but I think it's a really fun addition to any card if you can do it. I probably should do it more often, but I really don't because I'm impatient with waiting for things to dry. Other than that, that is today's card. I hope you enjoyed these theme cards. They are a little bit longer because they have the coloring and it allows me to ramble and just talk about all the random things that I'm thinking or debating about a particular card. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time for another video. Bye!